Over 70% of seniors drink water the healthy way, and it's silently flushing muscle, strength and minerals out of their body. You could be one of them. Here's what to add to stop it, starting today. In fact, in my decades working with aging patients, I've seen something deeply unsettling. Seniors who hydrate correctly on paper, 8 glasses a day, water bottles everywhere, yet their bodies behave as if they're chronically dehydrated at the cellular level. Muscles cramp, energy drops, dizziness becomes common, balance quietly worsens, not because they're careless but because the rules changed and no one told them. This idea was understood deeply by Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, one of the most respected longevity doctors in modern history. He spent his life studying why some people stayed strong and independent well into their 90s, while others declined decades earlier. Hinohara believed something most modern medicine ignores: the body's needs evolve with age. And repeating old habits without adjustment doesn't preserve health. It accelerates decline. He used to say, "Water without direction is like medicine without timing. It enters, but it doesn't heal." That sentence alone should make you pause, because after 60, hydration is no longer just about quenching thirst. Poor hydration at this stage of life contributes directly to muscle loss, fatigue, dizziness, slower healing, and loss of physical confidence. Not dramatically, quietly, gradually. Until one day you wake up and wonder when your body stopped cooperating. Now here's where the conversation finally gets honest. One of the few modern physicians who echoes this truth is Dr. Mark Hyman. He's been very clear about something most clinics never explain. Hydration is not about water alone. It's about electrolyte balance at the cellular level. Your cells don't absorb water just because you drink it. They need signals, minerals, electrical cues. Without those, water passes straight through you like rain on pavement, present but useless. And that's why today matters, because adding one simple element to your water, something inexpensive, ignored and rarely discussed, can dramatically improve how your cells hold fluid, how your muscles protect themselves, and how your body ages from the inside out. We're going to walk through 4 critical insights. Each one builds on the last. And by the end, I'll show you the most overlooked mineral seniors quietly lose every single day, the one that accelerates muscle loss when it's missing. Before we go any further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one, and then stay with me, because what comes next may change how you drink water for the rest of your life. There is a quiet physiological shift that happens after 60, and almost no one explains it clearly. For most of your life, thirst was a reliable signal. You felt dry, you drank water, and your body corrected the problem. Simple, efficient, automatic, but aging changes that internal alarm system. The sensation of thirst becomes muted. The brain no longer sends urgent signals. At the same time, the kidneys become less efficient at conserving fluid. They filter faster, discard more, and hold on to less. The result is subtle but profound. Water enters the body, but it doesn't stay where it's needed most. What looks like good hydration on the outside often turns into cellular dehydration on the inside. This is why so many older adults describe the same puzzling pattern. Water is consumed steadily throughout the day, yet by late afternoon the body feels drained. Legs feel heavy. Standing up brings a wave of lightheadedness. Fingers or calves tighten unexpectedly. Energy fades long before the day is over. Nothing dramatic, just a steady sense that the body isn't holding together the way it used to. The problem isn't discipline. It isn't neglect. It isn't forgetfulness. It's biology. After 60, water alone often behaves differently inside the body. Without the right internal signals, it moves through the digestive tract, enters the bloodstream briefly, and is then rapidly excreted. The cells never fully receive it. Muscles don't get adequately hydrated. Nerve signaling becomes less stable. Blood volume fluctuates more than it should. A useful way to picture this is dry soil after a long drought. When rain finally comes, the water doesn't soak in. It runs off the surface, disappearing before the ground can absorb it. The soil needs preparation before it can hold moisture again. Aging cells behave in a similar way. They require guidance. They need mineral cues to open channels, regulate volume, and retain fluid. Without those cues, water is present but functionally wasted. This explains why drinking larger amounts often backfires. The body responds by flushing more aggressively. Bathroom trips increase. Sleep gets disrupted. And still, the deeper signs of dehydration remain. What's happening beneath the surface is a loss of intracellular hydration. The fluid inside the cells drops, even while total water intake looks adequate. That internal dehydration stresses muscles, thickens blood slightly, and forces the heart to work harder to maintain circulation. Over time, this contributes to fatigue, reduced endurance, slower recovery, and a creeping sense of physical instability. Not because water is harmful, but because plain water by itself no longer carries enough information. The aging body does not respond to volume the way it once did. It responds to signals, and without those signals, hydration becomes incomplete. This is the first piece of the puzzle, and it sets the stage for what comes next. The quiet electrical imbalance that weakens muscles even in people who stay active. As the body ages, muscles don't simply weaken from lack of movement. They weaken because their internal communication system becomes unstable. Muscle tissue is not passive. Every contraction, every step, every adjustment for balance depends on precise electrical signals traveling through muscle fibers and nerves. Those signals determine when a muscle tightens, when it relaxes, and how smoothly it transitions between the two. This system relies on electrolytes. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium are not optional nutrients. They are charged particles that create electrical gradients across cell membranes. These gradients allow nerves to fire and muscles to respond. Without them, movement becomes inefficient, delayed, and unreliable. With aging, this balance becomes harder to maintain. Absorption from the gut declines. Certain medications increase mineral loss through urine. Appetite changes narrow dietary variety. Over time, electrolyte levels fluctuate more widely than they once did. The body adapts, but not without consequences. Muscles begin to feel heavy even with light activity. Strength feels inconsistent from one day to the next. Endurance drops without a clear reason. The legs, in particular, are often the first to signal this imbalance because they rely on constant, rapid communication to maintain posture and prevent falls. Water alone cannot correct this. Hydration without electrolytes is like trying to power a machine without wiring. The fluid is present, but the signal never reaches its destination. Muscles receive volume without direction. Nerves fire less cleanly. Reaction time slows. This is why muscle weakness can appear even in people who remain active and eat reasonably well. The issue isn't effort, it's transmission. At the cellular level, electrolytes regulate how much water enters a muscle cell and how long it stays there. They control muscle tone, relaxation, and readiness for the next contraction. When levels are low or imbalanced, muscles stay partially tense or partially depleted, never fully prepared. Over time, this creates a subtle but persistent stress on muscle tissue. Protein breakdown increases, repair slows, recovery from even mild exertion takes longer. The body compensates by reducing output. Movements become more cautious. Speed decreases. Strength quietly fades. This process is rarely dramatic. It unfolds slowly, often mistaken for just getting older. But the underlying issue is electrical, not motivational. Electrolytes are the language muscles use to understand instructions. When that language becomes fragmented, the entire system loses efficiency. And among all electrolytes involved in this process, there is one that declines most sharply with age, one that affects not just muscles, but sleep, energy, and recovery as well. That brings us to the next layer of the problem. Among all the minerals the aging body depends on, magnesium quietly slips away the fastest. It is involved in more than 300 enzymatic reactions, yet it rarely gets the attention given to calcium or vitamin D. And that oversight comes at a cost, because magnesium sits at the center of energy production, muscle control, and tissue repair. Every time a muscle contracts, magnesium is required for it to relax again. Every molecule of ATP, the body's cellular energy currency, must bind to magnesium to become biologically active. Without enough of it, energy exists on paper but not in practice. As the years pass, several forces converge. The digestive system absorbs magnesium less efficiently. Chronic stress increases urinary loss. Common medications accelerate depletion. Even a balanced diet may no longer deliver usable amounts to the cells that need it most. The result is a body that feels perpetually underpowered. Muscles tighten more easily and release more slowly. Cramps appear without warning. Recovery from physical effort stretches out longer than it used to. Sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented, depriving muscles of the deep repair cycles that preserve strength. These symptoms often appear together, not by coincidence, but because they share the same biochemical root. A helpful way to understand magnesium's role is to think of it as the spark plug in an engine. Fuel may be present, the engine may turn, but without ignition, nothing moves forward smoothly. Power becomes unreliable. Inside aging muscle tissue, low magnesium shifts the balance toward breakdown rather than repair. Protein synthesis slows. Inflammation lingers longer after activity. The nervous system stays in a heightened state, keeping muscles partially tense even at rest. This constant low-grade tension drains energy and accelerates fatigue. Over time, it contributes to muscle loss that appears resistant to effort or nutrition alone. Magnesium also influences sleep architecture. It helps regulate neurotransmitters that calm the nervous system and deepen restorative sleep stages. When magnesium levels fall, sleep becomes shallower, and the body misses critical windows for muscle regeneration. This creates a vicious cycle. Poor sleep worsens magnesium loss. Low magnesium worsens sleep. Muscle recovery falls further behind. None of this happens overnight. It unfolds gradually, often dismissed as normal aging. But at the cellular level, the deficit is anything but normal. It is a progressive imbalance that speeds biological aging from the inside out. And yet, magnesium is only part of the story. Even when magnesium levels are supported, hydration still requires something else to fully communicate with aging cells. Something that tells the body not just to absorb water, but to use it intelligently. That final piece is where everything comes together. At this stage, hydration stops being passive. In earlier decades, the body could take in water and distribute it automatically. Cells responded quickly, hormones adjusted efficiently, circulation adapted without much effort. But with age, that automatic system loses precision. The body begins to require clearer signals to decide what to retain, where to send it, and how to use it. This is where hydration quietly becomes a biological message rather than a simple intake. When water contains the right mineral context, it changes how cells behave. Cell membranes regulate volume more effectively. Stress hormones, particularly cortisol, tend to settle. Blood vessels respond with smoother dilation. Muscles receive clearer signals to preserve protein rather than break it down. These are not dramatic changes. They are subtle, systemic adjustments that compound over time. Properly mineralized water influences cell volume regulation, a process that determines whether cells shrink, swell, or maintain structural integrity. Aging cells are especially sensitive to this. When cell volume drops too often, muscles interpret it as stress and shift toward catabolism. When volume stabilizes, the internal environment favors maintenance and repair. This is one reason hydration quality begins to affect muscle preservation after 60. Circulation also responds. Minerals help maintain plasma volume and support smoother blood flow through smaller vessels. When circulation improves, oxygen and nutrients reach muscle tissue more consistently. Fatigue becomes less erratic. Recovery becomes more predictable. Many people notice a specific pattern when this internal signaling improves. Energy levels stop swinging so sharply. Legs feel steadier during walking. The sense of physical hesitation begins to fade. Not because the body is younger, but because it is better informed. The analogy that fits best is an aging engine that has not been damaged, only under-lubricated. Add the correct oil, and movement becomes smoother. Friction decreases. Efficiency returns. The parts were never broken. They were simply operating without adequate support. This is why a small change in water composition can have outsized effects. It speaks the language aging cells still understand. In practice, this approach tends to follow a natural rhythm. In the morning, hydration that includes a modest mineral signal and gentle acidity is associated with clearer cellular uptake and steadier energy. Midday hydration often returns to simplicity as the body is already primed. Later in the day, fluid intake naturally tapers as circulation and kidney function slow. Nothing extreme, nothing aggressive, just hydration that carries information instead of emptiness. When water begins to work with the body rather than merely pass through it, The effects extend beyond thirst. Muscles feel more protected. Balance feels more reliable. The body regains a sense of internal cooperation, and that is the real signal of longevity. Not force, not excess, but alignment. What ultimately shapes how the body ages is not discipline alone. It is responsiveness, the ability to recognize when physiology has shifted and to meet it where it is now, not where it used to be. That understanding was central to the thinking of Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who spent decades observing why some people maintained strength, clarity, and independence far beyond the expected limits. He believed aging was not a failure of the body, but a signal that its operating conditions had changed. Habits that once supported health could quietly become neutral or even counterproductive if they were never adjusted. Hydration illustrates this better than almost any other daily behavior. Later in life, the body does not respond well to blunt input. It no longer interprets more as better. Systems that once corrected automatically now require precision. The kidneys conserve differently. Cells regulate volume more cautiously. Muscles and nerves rely more heavily on stable internal chemistry to function smoothly. When that chemistry is incomplete, the body compensates by slowing down. This is why many older adults feel as though they are doing everything right, yet their bodies feel less cooperative each year. The issue is rarely neglect. It is mismatch. Modern physiology supports this view. Dr. Mark Hyman has emphasized that aging cells suffer not because they lack water, but because they lack nourishment at the cellular level. Fluids without minerals fail to stabilize cell volume. They fail to support electrical signaling. They fail to reduce the internal stress that drives muscle breakdown and fatigue. When hydration begins to carry the right signals, the internal environment changes. Muscles hold their tone more reliably. Circulation becomes steadier rather than erratic. Recovery no longer feels like a gamble. Energy stops rising and crashing without explanation. The body feels less reactive and more coordinated. This does not reverse time, it restores order. There is dignity in that kind of aging. Strength that can be relied upon. Balance that feels trustworthy. Thinking that remains clear enough to support independence. These are not luxuries. They are foundations of quality of life. Hydration, approached with understanding, supports all of them. This is not about abandoning water or chasing extremes. It is about allowing a familiar habit to evolve so it continues to serve the body instead of merely passing through it. After 60, water is no longer just a beverage. It is a biological signal, and when that signal is clear, the body responds with steadiness rather than strain.